Yeah. That's a feel big point.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for gathering here today to celebrate Michael J. O'Malley's life and work at Oregon State University's College of Education and beyond. The slides are going to continue as we have this celebration, so feel free for your attention to be somewhat divided, but also certainly entertained. My name is Randy Bell, and I'm the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, and like so many of you, a friend of mine. I don't think that Mike made many acquaintances, actually. His personality was such that he went straight from hello to friend almost immediately. And we are all beneficiaries of his welcoming personality and warm heart. This event is being live streamed and recorded via Zoom webinar. We are going to begin this event with a few opening pieces, and then counseling and psychological services and the Office of Dean of Students will facilitate sharing groups in this room, room 101 and room 102. Those who are viewing remotely are welcome to use Zoom's chat function to leave your memories and comments. If it weren't for construction, we would have been able to unveil a memorial rose bush outside of Berman Hall. This will happen at a later time, and in the meanwhile, the College of Education has hung a memorial plaque outside of this room, it's right over here. You view it on your way as you leave the room. As a token of recognition and celebration, please consider a gift to the Light Scholarship Fund. Gifts can be made to the OSU Foundation at osufoundation.org or mailed to the OSU Foundation. And please indicate that the gift is in memory of Michael Malley. Today, we are thankful to have a group of music education students who were also former students of Mike's perform a song in his memory. They will be singing "Oh Daddy Boy," a traditional Irish melody. The text is by Frederick Weatherly and arranged by James Drake. Thank you so much. I suppose that each of us has people in our lives whose impact on us creates poetry, creates a song in our heart. And I think if we were able to hear all of the words, all the musics that Mike has left for us, that it would be a symphony. Matt Nyman, my colleague and friend, has written a poem that he would like to share with us at this time.
Hello, my name is Matt Nyman, and I was blessed to be in the office next to Mike. A little preamble before I start reading. So first of all, I'd like to thank Nell, Richard, and Emmett for inviting me to do this reading. I'm really honored. I wrote this piece, this poem, soon after Mike died, as a way of grieving and remembrance. And I was trying to capture pieces of Mike. I challenge anyone to capture the whole of Mike, anyway. And connect these pieces to images and processes that describe how I knew Mike. And for me, those images included the dualism as water as both a nurturing and encompassing and growing process, his books, his passion for teaching, his connection with students, and how he fills a small corridor of the second floor. And now, given Mike's Irish heritage and penchant for outrageous humor, he probably would have preferred an Irish liver, but I suck at mine here. So I'm left to share my heart with some free verse, with apologies to Mike. And now let's see if I can get through it. So I titled it MJ_OM. I wonder if you knew what end this way. Not a trickle and gathering of waters and pools. Instead, the gates flew open and you left with a suddenness that emptied us. No goodbyes or sentimental pitter-patter. But I think that is you, as I remember, a torrent both eroding and encompassing. You ripped through your books and carted them in a heavy satchel across campus to slap on the classroom desk. You did not really need the contents or the books to deliver your lesson. You shredded that from your being, levelly sprinkling chunks into the waiting mouths of your students. Now that office, so miraculously filled with your books, sits quietly interrupted only by the memories of conversations that echoed down empty corridors, which were never ready for you or large enough to contain the heavy tread and rolling grove. You never, ever came quietly, and now we absorb the painful echoes of your departure. Thank you.
I would like to welcome our friend and colleague, Nell O'Malley, Mike's wife, to say a few words.
I'm going to take off my mask. I think that's not funny anything, but it's more than a few words. And it would be, I could just write a few words. Pull myself together. I got that anyway. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you for joining us today, in person and virtually, as we honor Mike's life and work as the consummate teacher man at Oregon State University. How can we possibly give it its full due to honor a life so impactful in just a few short minutes? As Mike's life partner of 34 years and constant witness to his expansive professional impact, I considered Mike's legacy at length, want to hit a few high points, knowing I can't possibly paint the complete picture. First, I want to acknowledge that in the 13 weeks since Mike's passing, the kids and I have been overwhelmed with love and support as we tried to understand, to heal, and to trace Mike's enormous footprint. A footprint that includes at least 2,500 high school students, and about 10 times that number at OSU over the course of 31 years. I know you all share my desire to make sure that his wonderful and uniquely generous spirit lives on. For those of you still considering a career in teaching, please take note of the impact you can have in this role. Mike didn't just like to talk, he loved to talk. But one topic he never addressed with me was death, or at least he never shared his thoughts on the subject, and as you know, he usually didn't hold back. His parents lived into their 80s, and Mike seemed to feel invincible. Indeed, each day he would flex his muscles, ask me how he looked, and then make one of his many statements about his invincibility that might include, "I can still bench press 300 pounds 5 times," or "No one messes with this Irishman." One of the many things that was so charismatic about him was that he could make you feel safe with his strength and cocksureness. And of course, there was that relentless, rapid-fire wit. And so his crazy sudden passing left us gasping for something to hang on to now that our pillow has crumbled. At first, I struggled to imagine what he would have wanted me to do. Did he want me to sell the house, bury it again, go back to work, bury him in Corvallis, Boston, or Ireland, and so on? For many weeks, I was stymied until it hit me that I was approaching the question in a typical fourth-generation American way by asking what I should do. See, Mike was first and foremost a proud first-generation Irish American who at his core was resistant to fully assimilating into a more American, capitalist, acquisitive culture of doing and having. As I reflected on how we grew together over the years and ultimately built an amazing life together, I recalled his Irish Catholic commitment to social justice, his desire to make people laugh, and his total immersion in each moment and interaction. It made him late all the time. Over the years, he made me better by forcing me to slow down the frames of my life and be fully immersed in the love of each moment. In this way, he truly embodied love and generosity. And for my part, I helped him try new things, travel, experiment, and add to his experiential repertoire. He loved the French sound of French, by the way, and butchered it every chance he could. Accoutrement was a particular recent favorite. He used to say that he'd still be a doorman were it not for me, and I knew that I would never have prioritized love and presence without him. We pushed each other in our differences, and in doing so built a life that surpassed our wildest dreams. And so finally I could see that he wouldn't want me to do anything, he would want me to be more present, to be more loving, and to be more committed to the moment. A huge part of Mike's being was based on his broad and dynamic knowledge base. His main doing was reading, and he read and retained everything. It was a dazzling talent, and combined with his humor, made him the most compelling of speakers, even with an 8 o'clock class. When he read to himself, he would grunt, constantly and enthusiastically, as if his physical engagement with the material would help him integrate it into his lexicon. Sometimes I felt like I was living with my own personal encyclopedia, and I knew the work that had gone into writing it. The library in his head bedazzled everyone, yet he was never pedantic. He wanted to be an intellectual role model by applying his learning in every setting. He made even the most Byzantine of materials accessible to his students. Now he sounds pedantic. Losing both that mind and his ability to make knowledge accessible to everyone is a profound loss for us all. He combined that knowledge with intuitive brilliance. Though brilliance was a word he hated, he felt that effort always trumped natural ability. So another irreplaceable facet of his loving nature was, rather ironically, exemplified in his uncanny knack for choosing surprisingly successful picks in something unexpected, fantasy sports. He was sneaky amazing at selecting underdog winners for the same reason he was such a gifted and impactful educator. No one, and I mean no one, was better at seeing potential in young people. As the outpouring of love and support he received in these 13 weeks attest to, and in his children, as his children have both alluded to, Mike really saw and understood young people deeply, holistically, and lovingly. in a way we can all aspire to emulate. When Mike first died, I wondered what we would become without him, both individually and collectively. And now I can see that he can live on in each of us when we commit to meaningful introspection, reading and being an intellectual role model, being more present, being more loving, and being more committed to challenging the status quo. Mike O'Malley gave everything he had to every person and every moment, and I was always and still am humbled by it. Please join me in embodying his special gifts, his love, his embrace of each moment, his commitment to intellectual growth, and his full presence in every interaction. Please join me in helping the best of Michael Joseph O'Malley live on in all those amazing ways. In closing, I want to thank our colleagues in the College of Education for all their support these last weeks. Working with a married couple wasn't always easy, and we were and continue to be extended the extraordinary empathy and compassion that only his peers can offer. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Celebrate Mike's legacy and to support each other at this time. We ask that you please continue to wear your masks and remember to pick up any trash or belongings that you brought to the room. There are refreshments and cookies outside of this room to take with you as you leave the building. And again, if you are doing remotely, we welcome you to use Zoom's chat function to leave your memories and comments. Those here in person are invited to come up and use this time as an open mic session. Please note that by coming up to speak, you consent to being recorded, and those viewing remotely can see and hear you. You do not have to stand in front of the camera to share, but your audio will be recorded. Now I'd like to welcome Ian Kellums from CAPS to say a few words. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking you for letting me share this space with you. I didn't know Mike, and I wish I would. That sounds like you lived a big life. And I also know that you're not here to listen to me, so I'm going to be quick. I wanted to start by reading a quote from C.S. Lewis, his partner had died, and he wrote a series of reflections on grief that I think articulates what that process is like for many of us. He said, "For in grief, nothing stays put. One keeps on emerging from a phase, but it always recurs. Round and round, everything repeats. Am I going in circles? Or dare I hope I am on a spiral? But if a spiral, am I going down or up it? How often will it be for always? How often will the vast emptiness astonish me like a complete novelty and make me say again, I never realized my loss till this moment?" End of quote. I think as human beings, we want and need to make sense of what we're experiencing to create coherent stories of our lives. Some have reduced grief to a series of easily understood linear stages that we neatly progress through. And maybe that happens sometimes. But my experience has been that, like C.S. Lewis described, grief can be messy and nonlinear and disorienting and surprising. And this messiness has never been more true than it is right now, when your loss of Mike is piled on top of all the other grief and disruption you're experiencing with the pandemic. My hope is that you can have grace for yourselves in your messy grief, as I'm guessing Mike would have had for you. And because how we experience grief can feel so personal and individual and lonely, it's even more important for you to stay connected with others and to be in community like you're doing today, so that you can be spiraling upward. So now is the time for you to tell your stories about Mike, your anecdotes. Just as a reminder of what Randy had mentioned, we'd ask that you come to the front to speak. If you don't want to be on camera, you probably need to be over in front of this screen over here. And if you're comfortable with that, then you can speak here. Also, we have overflow rooms. And so if anyone in the overflow room wants to speak, then they're welcome to come in here to say their words. So the time is now yours, and I believe we have until 5:30 to share.
Seventh test, John. There you go. So I met Mike through Neil Davidson and through Irish Studies. I'm Charlotte Peppert. I'm a baritone from the University Theater. And so we met years and years ago. We all trekked over to the University of Oregon, that other place. They were doing a seminar, and Mike was there, and Neil Davidson. I don't know if it's Neil here. I can't. So that's how I met Mike. And then years passed, and I can't remember the sequence of this, but we were doing the female version of Glengarry Glen Ross by David Mamet. If you know David Mamet, Falmouth is his name. And so these women were taking on these male roles, and they cursed every other business. Anyhow, so I get this email from Mike. The email says, I need to come teach those women how to curse. They don't know how to curse. And so later on, I had gotten a guest artist here, and Waylon Link, and Waylon was doing Native American, and he was doing First Nation plays, and got here to do readings. And we needed a reader, and I'm not sure how this came about. I think Robin Peppers may have said, call Mike. Let Mike be one of the readers. So we did a First Nation play in the Longhouse, and Mike was one of the readers in that play. So I'm blessed to have known him.
It would be yelling at one of you right now to talk, just so you know.
My first year here as associate dean, one of my tasks was, as the year came to a close, to provide faculty evaluations. And it turned out that Mike was one of my supervisees. And so as I was preparing for my meeting with Mike to talk about what he had accomplished that year, set goals for the coming year, I felt really good about it because, of course, I got to know Mike over the year, and I knew this was going to be a comfortable session, and I knew that there wouldn't be any tension in the room or anything like that. Plus, as you all know, he's a consummate teacher, and so I had a lot of good things to share with him about his impact on our students and the college. So I was really looking forward to this conversation. Mike comes into my office with a very serious look on his face, which surprised me. And he throws his report down on my desk and he says, and I quote, "You do know, Randy, that this is bullshit." And we proceeded at first to have a very different conversation than I was expecting. But as you might imagine, where Mike was coming from is that you can't capture the essence of someone's contribution to a community and to an organization in a report. And I'm glad to say that every year after that, when we had these annual reviews, that Mike and I had a really good conversation. And I made it one of my goals to always try to capture for Mike how much his contributions meant to the college, to our students, to our colleagues. I don't think I was ever adequate, but I do want to say, as someone who's been in education a long time, that I don't know of anybody in my life who had anywhere near the impact in terms of being an instructor, an advisor, and someone who just cares for students the way that Mike did. And we're going to listen to the story.
I talked to Paul about that. Mike and Mel were the first two to interview me for a job here at OSU. And I'll never forget, I had my list of interview questions. So I was a stay-at-home mom for a while as a teacher, and I was getting ready to come get interviewed for this job to teach this class called Learning Through the Lifespan. And I had printed out my list of questions that I was practicing my answers to. And so I'm practicing them, and I remember walking down the street, coming in to sit down for the Mel, Mike, and Sue Ann to interview me. And he had all the questions, and I'm like, who's this Mike and Mel? Are they married? I don't know. You know, I didn't know them at all. Mike turns, he looks at me and he says, so what's the last book you've read? I'm like, what? That's not my interview question. Like, I don't know. And I remember the conversation because I read a lot of like fun fiction, mysteries, dramas, but I knew that wasn't going to cut it. Like, it can talk about, you know, something like that. So I came up with, I remember the book I read, Punished by Rewards. And it was a good book. Oh, this is great, great. And so I got hired for the job, and Mike was he was the mentor. He was the one teaching me how to teach classes. I think it was like in 2006. And he'd say things like, you know, when you want to something done, you want to order a book or a textbook, whatever, you walk over to that bookstore and you talk to those ladies behind the counter. You get to know people. You walk over there to the library. You don't really do any of that now, right? Because we're on Zoom and everything's online. If I did that now, they'd look at me crazy. Like, what are you doing here? You should order this online. But he taught me all those things. You walk over there, you talk to the ladies at the bookstore, you get to know them, you get to know your name. And when I'm teaching, is my first time ever teaching a class of college students, and I was really nervous. I wanted to be perfect. Like, oh, Sarah, don't worry about it. It takes at least 3 times before you're any good at it. and I catch myself. I've been training a lot of people over the last few years, and I'll say, you know, it takes 3 times before you get it. Mike told me that. Don't worry, that's what it is. And I catch myself saying things that he said to me. Get to know that person, get to know their name. And so I just want to emulate the things that he taught me. He also is all in with this. He used to say all the time, because I'm not very disciplined, you know, we've got to do this, got to do it this way, and he's like, no, don't worry about it, it'll work out, just give it a complete, move on, and just do that, it'll all happen. Like, oh, we can't do that, it's on this day, and we've got to have it this way. And he's like, no, when you talk to me, take the time to talk to me. Finally, you go, you know, just finagle a bagel. We'll just finagle a bagel. And I'm still not sure what that really is. I do catch myself in my mind, just so you know, when I'm working with students, and he has really taught me that mindset, that kindness, that to understand that everybody has a story and everybody's going through something. And in my mind, when I'm like trying to help a student, how do we work our way around the rules and the policies to get what the student needs? And in my mind, I'm saying, I'm just gonna finagle the bagel. I don't say it out loud, I'm not quite sure if it's okay, but.
My name is Lynn Jerky. I'm a faculty member in the College of Education, my last. And some of you may be saying, why is this Lynn standing in front of us? I mean, I wasn't very involved in teacher education. But Mike being Mike, he made it his job to find out about the work that I did. And I often, I had a big project in Portland, and we would bring youth here on campus in the summer. And Mike would always come and watch, and he'd always say, this is really good. This is really good. The other thing that I must say about these events is they always involved donuts or or pizza. And I could be up in the farthest fourth floor. And I can understand the pizza, you can smell pizza. But to this day, I don't know how he could always know where the cookies and the donuts. And that I happened to have youth in the building on that particular day. But he was extremely supportive, and I didn't quite know how to react when I heard this topic. I wish, as one always does, I had told him how much I appreciated the support he provided to be doing something a little out of the usual way of things. So anyway,
My name's Cameron. I'm a vocal performance major at Oregon State. I have mikeomalley who's one of the class. I've had many teachers in my time in education. Usually it takes a little while to get to know students, to get to connect with your teachers. But as many people have already said, Mike made it his job to know who you were. More than that, Mike made it his job for you to know who you were, and for you to know your potential. And he wasn't going to let you not live up to that potential, but he's not trying. It's a funny short story, but first day of his class was online because COVID just started. It was fall of last year. And I was feeling particularly brave, particularly awake. I don't know why. I was. He asked a question. I was the first person to answer. He said, "Cameron, you're my new favorite student." What? I like a couple minutes passed, and Cameron was named Josh, and he answered the next question. And Mike goes, "Sorry, Cameron, Josh, you're my new favorite." It was funny, but it was just an amazing way to get us all engaged and connected for this class that I think probably most of us went into dreading. Some of us students have the capability to take it here full time. I'm not one of them. So his ability to do that was really amazing. I'm so grateful for how we meet people. I think that oftentimes we're not remembered by what we do, or especially not what we do behind the scenes, but how we make people feel. And Mikeomalley made each and every one of us feel important. I'm so grateful for that.
The first days of class. I took my class, oh gosh, years ago. I'm now a student counselor, in part because of him. But the very first day of class, the very first question, my hand shot up. And there was another gentleman somewhere behind me in the room whose hand equally enthusiastically raised. But I was the one that got called on. And that student in the back corner went, "Hey, how's she your favorite? Why isn't it me?" And he said, "Well, if you were the girl with purple hair in the front row, I might have seen you first." And that was the moment I think I fell in love with him as a student, because I came back to school as an adult with purple hair, and I was a little nervous. And in that moment, he made it completely and utterly clear to me that who I was 100% fun. That who I was had value in any moment. And I was hooked, right? I was hooked on what he was saying and what he was teaching. And now I get the opportunity to do that for other people. Because he made me realize how much just loving someone as they are, freely, changes lives. And so now I get to take his message and pass it on and keep using it and keep it alive.
Oh, Lord. So, the O'Malley family, you don't know me. Lord. My name is Chris Montecarlo, and moved to Oregon about 3.5 years ago. I'm a senior here. Don't judge me. I'm still a business major, so I hope I can leave into college tonight. So I sat in that seat 2 years ago, and I met Mike, and I had at 8 a.m. And I was late to every class, every single class. In fact, some of my friends who I met up with last week for lunch, dinner, they said he would make fun of me every single time. He would say, "Oh, there's the Italian walking in." Later, he'd say, "Oh, Mr. Ronaldo, what were you, just whack somebody?" Or, in the middle of class, like, I was trying to go quiet, he would just say these things, and I wouldn't know how to respond. And I really had a connection with Mike because I'm from Rhode Island. I'm half Irish, half Italian. Both my family's immigrants, so I'm full crazy. And being from New England, we're very we have that connection. We have that human. We like to help our friends. Oregon's a beautiful place, but people are very American here, just like Nell, I believe you were saying in your speech, very that don't have the immigrant mentality. And when he touched my life, I was like, I don't want to go into me, but I was very lost in life, and I had made some bad choices, and I was not in a good place. And I don't think people can save you, but I think he showed me a way to save myself. And I went into his office, and the first time I went into his office, he takes a brick and he puts it on the table. And he says, "What's this brick? Is he gonna hit me with it?" And he said, "My father built that. In Boston, this is from the neighborhood. My father was a bricklayer. My grandfather was the same thing." And I was like, this is the guy's OG. This is how I knew it was real. The last thing Mike ever said to me, one of the last things was I looked like shit, so I came here, I tried to. It's not healthy, and what's the matter? You look like shit. During the pandemic, I went back east, and I was taking care of my grandmother, did some online school. So I took a little time off doing a couple classes, and then I really when I was coming back to OSU this fall, 2 weeks ago, I made it a point that one of the most important things was to reconnect with Mike. I had sent him a text, and I had sent him an email this summer. I didn't get a response, but I figured it was Mike, and I just walked into his office, and he'd be heckling I forgot the name of the man that was next to him. Matt, he used to heckle you. And anyways, I was with my friends And, you know, they said, you know, Mike had passed, this was last week, and I instantly, I started crying in the middle of the restaurant. And, my friend David couldn't join me tonight, but he said, you know, Mike loved you, and he said, you know, I had another class with him, he was in college education, so he had seen me during the year I had him. And he said, you know, Mike talks about you all the time, like he loved you, and he always checked up on you. Was wondering how you're doing, and I think our minds are so negative, we tend to always look at after I finished my cry, I was like, well, you know, selfishly, why didn't I have more time with this guy, you know? But on the other hand, like, just the fact I was able to cross paths, he's such a wonderful person. I'm really blessed, and you were very blessed as well. And you know, I'll shut up. But you know, we all have like a Western mind, even no matter where we come from. Our minds become very Westernized. And so like when you say spirituality, you know, we tend to have like a little like, oh, okay, like, but you know, I've been very blessed. I've been able to travel, and in the East, they always say that when someone goes and they're so full of life, so full of energy, you'll see them again. And I know that's something that might sound a little nice, but I really think that for someone to have so much life and to go, I mean, just pay attention, because you might see him again, you know, in a young person crossing the street or somewhere else in your life, you might see him again, so. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Jess, and I was lucky enough to have Mike my sophomore year and last spring term. So I just have him as a teacher. I first met Mike my sophomore year, and I was wearing a San Francisco Giants baseball hat, and he immediately pulls me up after class, and we just start talking baseball for like an hour after class. And then a couple weeks later, he asked us a question, and I forgot what the question was, but the answer was Willie Mays, and I was the only person who seemed to know who Willie Mays was in the entire class. I don't know how, but so we just connected on baseball instantly. So last spring, I was lucky enough to have him again on Zoom, unfortunately, but nonetheless. And I don't think I've ever had someone believe in me quite like Mike. And he taught me so much, it's kind of hard to think about it right now, especially in front of all of you guys. And he really believed in me, and I told him that I want to go to grad school, I want to be a teacher, and he said, "You're going to Harvard." I said, "What the heck are you talking about? I'm not going to Harvard." He's like, "No, you're going. I believe in you." I said, "Okay, I'm going to try my best." And he said, "Hey, you give me a call one day." And he gave me his phone number. I talked to him for like an hour on a random Saturday. Took time out of his weekend just to talk to me for an hour. And he said, "Call me back in the beginning of September." So I put it on my calendar. And looking at my calendar and having to delete that off my calendar was really hard. But nonetheless, he has taught me so much, and I will take everything he ever taught me with me. The power of empathy, the power of knowing your students, the power of being just a good person and taking the time to know people and read books and write and just love everything. And I will never forget Mike ever. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Clough. I'm a colleague of Mike's. I'm in the school history, philosophy, religion. I joined OSU in 2003, but I didn't meet Mike till 2012. But I just came here to tell you a short little thing, because I don't think it's quite been touched on, which is we talked about how he affected his students and his colleagues, but one thing, he also got colleagues together. And he did this through students often. So you know, you get the stream of students in your class, in your office, right? And some of them really start to stand out. They ask really interesting, intense questions. They're questioning assumptions. Maybe not necessarily aggressive, but you can tell they just got that edge and that curiosity, and they all had one thing in common. Every single one of them said to me at some point during office hours, "Do you know Mike O'Malley?" And I'm like, no, but after like the seventh time, you're like, geez, I better find this guy. And so it was a student who got us together. I remember we had coffee together over in Kelly Engineering and with a couple of our students that we shared some classes with, and then we've been working together ever since. So how lucky is that the students who he mentored and ended up being not just out in the world, but even on campus, bringing folks together. It's just a last quick little memory is I get an email from him in June. It's going up for a promotion. Why am I thinking I'm doing Mike's voice? I don't know. But anyway, you can it's a gruff email. He's writing a gruff. He's going up for promotion to like the second whatever instructor thing. Yeah, he hated all of that crap, as you know. And so it meant nothing, but there were some hoops. I don't know whose voice that is. And he needed some peer review of his classes, and I'm a full professor, and I was outside at college, so maybe I would have more of whatever this is. So I was to watch a recording of him in teaching over Zoom, which of course, as we all know, is like an extra. Not good. So it was very sweet. It was just, I'm so glad this is my last memory of him, which is watching this Zoom recording of him teaching probably an 8 a.m. class. Actually, I don't think it could have been 8 a.m. because in the background, he had his camera set up so that you could just see Nell pottering in the kitchen. He'd be going back and forth, and he'd be, just talking about baseball and everything, but and I don't know, race relations and education and money and all the stuff. He was so good at talking. It was just, I just taking notes and saying, yes, please promote this guy. Yes, he's awesome. Thank you for having, it was just like, yeah, that was easy. That was anyway. It was just, but it was just great to see Mike kind of even bringing it in a Zoom session at whatever hour it was in this living room, and so I wrote the letter. I think we got it off in time. I hope he got promoted in time. I don't know where that all went. Oh, man. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. And thank you for everyone for organizing this. I think I shared this on Facebook since I've been here since 2003. I think I've been paying attention, but I've never seen anything quite like this organized for a faculty. I mean, it's just really meant a lot to so many people, as evidenced by the Zoom and all the everything and the plaques and the rose bushes and this is great. I'm just trying to think if you would like it or hate it. But as Nell said, it's not really up to him, right? It's how he would want us to. He would just want us to be, and that would crack. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I had Mike during spring semester, just when everything went online for the first time. It was my first year in college then, and I was mad. Everything had gone online. I had to move back in with my parents. Nothing was going the way it should have gone. And while I was in class with Mike, he had a way of asking questions that really make you think about how the material that he was teaching would relate not only to the work you would do as an educator in the future, but the work you need to do on yourself to grow as a person and to become better. Because everybody wants to be as good a person as they can, right? And so I was really struggling with one of the concepts he was teaching. I think it was in relation to developmental stage of education, just something along that line. And I went into office hours and I said, Professor, I've read this thing 3 times already. I am not getting it. It's hopeless. And he said, okay, first it's Mike, not Professor. And secondly, it's because you're not really reading. You're seeing the words, you're paying attention to them, but you're not thinking about how it applies to yourself as a human, as an educator, how it's gonna go out in the world once you read it. And he goes, it was reading about self-reflection is like trying to force your head through a brick wall. It's not happening. You'll never get over it. And that advice in particular has helped me in so many other classes that I've taken since. And with Mike's, instruction, it really turned my view around. Now I'm actually heading more into education policy because I would like to change some of the systems that we've got going on in this country. As Mike always said, public school. I think that just sums it up. Yeah, and I don't think I'll ever forget just how instrumental he was to helping me find a spot where I could help others in the same way that he was able to help me. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going up because I know I would kill myself if I don't. She said he'd be yelling at us to get up here. He would have been, you, Amy, come on up. So I'm Amy Dewar, and I'm painfully shy. So this is very difficult for me, and I'll try not to go on too long. But Mike was a wonderful man, and I think a lot of people have already touched on some of the things that, just a wonderful person he was, how he always believed in you, how he loved you unconditionally. And I can tell you the first time that I came into his class, I was 31 years old. I was going back to school. I was a failure in my mind. That was not in a good way, in many, many ways. And I would often come in late too, and I just have a couple of memories I'd like to share. I was always too painfully shy of the office hours. But I remember one time I dragged myself to class very, very late, just awful, but made it, right? And he's lecturing and he's doing stuff, and I'm trying to sneak in, of course, right? He's trying to sneak in, and he just stops. He looks at me, and the only thing he does is he just gives me a kiss. Like, you made it. Good for you. You made it. Welcome. Come sit in the back wherever it is. And just that sort of unconditional love and acceptance is something that was really awesome because he was like the father figure I didn't know I needed. And just, I'm thankful for it to go on, but just I remember there were a few times where I very sort of shyly waited to approach him after class because everybody would always want to stop and talk to him, and he kind of told me, well, I'm not going to capture it in his words, but basically was like, yeah, you're an anxious wreck, but that's part of your process. Just go puke in the garbage can and then get up there, player. Like, there was a basketball player who did that, and I'm not a sports person, so I don't remember his name. But he would always just puke in the garbage can and then get on the court and then play his best. That's your process. Just own it. And that was a lot for me dealing with anxiety. And then the last thing I want to share, amongst many things, too many to say, is just, I said, oh, I was a failure in my eyes, 31 years old, going back to college, all this stuff. And when I shyly approached him one day after class again, he asked me, he says, well, how old are you? Right? I said, I'm 31. And he goes, oh, perfect. You're right where you need to be. I was 31, I was 32 or something like that. It's like when I decided to be a teacher, it's like you were right where you need to be. And just that, I don't know, that acceptance and that encouragement and just understanding is just phenomenal. And I will miss him dearly. And that's it. Thank you.
I think second to compose myself, this is way out of my comfort zone. I first met Mike when I had him as a teacher. I was a senior this year, 4 years ago in this classroom. And it's just been really difficult to describe to my family members and friends and stuff, like
why this is so much of a big deal for so many of us. I am in the education program here at Oregon State, but I have been drowning the entire time I've been a student, and it's definitely one of those things that I was just gonna go to class and, sit through it and go home, my dorm and whatever, freshman year. It was really rough, and I was having a hard time figuring out what, nobody wants to know what they want to do to life, and it seems like they need Mike and figure it out, because he pulls it out of me. And he, talked to all of us that, lingered, and he made this connection with every single person, which is why it feels so silly that I'm standing here right now, because it's every single person who's ever interacted with has something influential and important to say about his influence. And that's not easy. It's really, really hard to be an empath all the time, the way that he was, and to be, that focused in on every single person that came through his door, whether you were front row answering every question, or you never came until, every once in a while, or whatever the case may be. And I was blessed enough to have him again. We might have even been in the same class, spring term, just a few months ago. And it was hard to watch someone who is such a fantastic educator be stuck behind that screen, because it was very clearly frustrating for him to not be able to engage in the ways that he normally would. And really, really tried, and he did his best. He got us all there and talking, and I was feeling really weird about everything at the time, but it was, my favorite professor, something that was really important to me, this topic, this profession that I had found through him, that was what I was going to do. And I think it's still really incredible that he has this way to capture, what's going on, and, even through limitations, I am very blessed to have that be the very last class that I took from him so recently. I shared in class at one point because we were required to. And he emailed me after class, and he does this with everyone, which is why this is so silly. But he emailed me just to say that whatever I had said was really moving or important or whatever it was. And it's not even like the words that matter, but he did that with every single student. And it was just really impactful. And I know someone said it, there's a bunch of O'Malleyites that are going to be running around in school districts real soon. And I'm very, very blessed to have crossed paths with him at any point. And I'm so excited and proud to be an educator who has, worked under some of the best professors that I've ever had in college, and in this major and this, the department and stuff. And I think it's just because people care, like Mike cared, and you could feel it. That's kind of all I had to say. I don't know. He was very blunt and very engaging and hilarious all of the time. And I love to talk, but I never met someone else who loves to talk as much as me. And it was really interesting, getting to see that and see what, what could be and what this could look like to do as a career. And I can't thank him enough for the potential that he pulls out of every single student. And I'm honestly heartbroken that those behind me don't get to continue to have that. Those are big shoes to fill at the university. Good luck. I don't really know how else to say it, but he definitely made an impact, and there's really no other way to put it. There's nothing that you can do except just go, oh, well, if you knew him, you knew him. And I want to say thank you.
Well, I was gonna say something. I gotta check on the kids. No, I'm kidding. So unlike many, I never even actually got to meet Mike, and I'm here. I was in his, this last spring's class, virtually. But as I started back this term, some of my classes have been on Zoom at 8 a.m. When my kids get up and see me get on my computer at 8 a.m., they want to talk to Mike. She's sweat. The thing I remember most, what all you've already said already, is that I'm going to come back and talk to you guys if my daughter develops an accent. But yeah, he was just an amazingly incredible man, and when I saw the news, it literally like many of us did, and it's not the first loss of experience in life, but it's one of the harder ones, and I never actually got to shake his hand. So those of that did, very lucky, because he was an amazing, but I really did with it.
My name is Jill, and I am going into my 4th year teaching at the charter school out in Post. I teach social studies, so I got the pleasure of having like a lot of different classes. When I came to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to help people, and I had TC 216 in the very first semester. And that completely drove me into the direction of like, if I can do anything like what he's doing, then that's what I'm going for. It's funny because I work with kids every single day, and there's so many small moments from like, not like regurgitating Mike, but I feel like his essence of what he believed in, his empathy, his connection. Today, I was talking to a bunch of football players that were failing, and they said, you need to show up and try, and I'll take care of you. And that sounded exactly like what I said. So there was one moment, my junior year, where I was just done. Like I was done, I was over it, I was working all the time, and it just worked out. So I don't want to cry, but I came to his office. I don't even know why. And I was like, I just don't know if I can pass this social studies test, or I don't know if I can have the energy to get through the next year of teaching. And he just paused and looked at me, and he was like, you know, you're very bright. Has anyone ever told you that? And for some reason, I know it's simplistic, but it changed my course, and it finished out, and I have my dream career now. Not like it's been wonderful last year, but I think if I can at least get the feelings that he gave me, a feeling it was worth it, and you have the capability to do whatever. To my students, not really everything. So the O'Malleys, I meant to see you. I'm sorry for your loss, and just know how much you impacted my life.
Hi there, my name is Brandon. I am I'm in my student teaching year right now at my placement. I started college in 2012, got my degree in kinesiology, and then worked in sales for some reason. And then I realized, wow, I hate sales, I hate business. I hate this so much, I dreaded every minute of my day. I did that for about 2 years, and it was that whole time I kept having friends tell me like, do you ever think about being a teacher? And I would like stop at them all the time. Eventually I decided, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Things started falling into place, a lot of research, talked to friends who were teachers. And they all really encouraged me to come back to OSU, do this program specifically. So I came back last fall. I was in Cameron. I believe I was in Cameron's fall term, 8 a.m. for 216. And yeah, 8 a.m.s are tough, but like that 8 a.m. was so different from any other 8 a.m. that I ever had. So it's on Zoom, but Mike was like in the camera as if he was trying to reach through the camera. Yeah. Even as I'm like on the couch, almost dozing off, he always like commanded my attention in like the most inspiring of ways, not of like the, hey, pay attention, but more of like the, what I'm saying right now is so interesting and profound that I, like, my brain was just firing off.
Yeah.
I really love having been a teacher as an educator. I've found myself I've just taught 4 lessons so far. And my first lesson, I caught myself halfway through and I'm like, I feel like I'm talking with Mike. Like lots of just, you know, moving around, lots of energy. And I'm like, this isn't really how I am, but that's who modeled that for me. And I felt like that really resonated with my own personality. In one of his assignments, you know, he had us, you know, read a book and do basically a book report. And he makes us choose off of our list or off of his list of his recommendations. So I chose a book and I did my report on it, and I was really proud of that report. I put a lot of my own heart into that. I found the book really interesting, and he gave me feedback on the report, and he was like, Brandon, I'm disappointed that I only have one more paper of yours to read for the end of this. And he's like, you truly have a talent for this. And growing up, well, so first of all, that meant a lot to me. Growing up, I was always dealing with my self-worth, if I was performing well enough, if I was doing good enough. And thinking of the people who motivated me, who inspired me to pursue being an educator, it was always the teachers who made me feel like I could accomplish what I set my mind to. I think back to my PE teacher, my econ teacher. They were all people who didn't make sure that I knew the information as much as I knew that I could meet that challenge, whatever it was. And coming back to school, I was thinking like, okay, I have that student teacher who inspired me. I have that PE teacher who inspired me. This person inspired me. And then the first class I take is with Mike. And I was like, holy crap, he's like all these people combined for. he was really like the fuel to my fire. The things that he talked about in class were so fascinating to me. And yeah, it sucks a lot to hear of his passing, but it's really cool to see how his legacy lives on in different areas that we're working in, and how his sayings persist. I had a particularly difficult class on Wednesday, and I know I'm going to go in tomorrow with a different mindset of the things that we talked about today, like loving the student, the whole student. I was focusing on their behaviors. I'm like, wow, they cannot sit still. They cannot listen. And I found myself becoming frustrated. But then I think about how Mike treated me and how he treated so many of us. And like, that's who I want to be for my students. I want to inspire them. I mean, I should care teaching the standards, but I want to care more about them. And I feel like, what was that saying he had? They don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's true. That's how I felt. So if I'm anything like students in front of me, like I'm going to try and embody that as much as I can. So yeah, I was really lucky to know Mike, even if it was just virtually through Zoom and through a few nice feedbacks on my assignments. But yeah, he definitely made a huge impact in my life, and I'm going to think about him every single school year, all the time. So thank you.
I'm Gigi Spence, and I am moved by all of you to stand up here. Yes, being the fuel for your fire and the encouragement for me, the hope. I'm also in education, but I know Mike in a different facet. Our kids grew up together. some of those Corvallis kids are here. You're all our kids, whether you come from Rhode Island or whatever. But I come here because of Mike and knowing that authenticity and that truth and that this Mike Adele and his love. I loved how he loved Mel. I loved how he loved Ellen and Bridget. And we were just together in June, and it was just a cool gathering. And it was very Corvallis. And he was so excited about the education of his very two, your very two, and what they were going to do with what we needed to do collectively. And so I am so moved, and it's not shocking, it's Mike. So I was driving through the Rockies and got the call. It was gone all of July. And I've been waiting for this day to connect. And thank you for filling my heart with hope, because he does live on big. He lives on very, very big. And my connection for life gives life. And that is, at that gathering, I asked him for water. And he gave me water. You know, there was wine, there was strawberry lemonade, there were good choices. But I asked for water that night, and I just feel like he sees you, he hears you, he understands, and he's also got a sense of what's going on in the whole space that is shared. But as we're having conversation and mixing it up, he checked in, you know, just in passing, hey, where's your water? So I'm sure that's what you were talking about with your experiences with him. So yeah, stay connected, and I love.
Justin Roach. My first memory of Mike is from 20 years ago, and it was building was a piece of done. In the classroom upstairs, and that was chairs underneath us, because we were about 2 years old there when Mike taught class, and we instantly connected over Red Sox baseball, he became a part of almost all the major parts of my life. Joined the MHC, it was partly Mel helped me get in to go on academic probation. So we connected when I did my last year's in teaching. We connected when I was looking for elementary jobs. I got hired, offered a middle school job in Albany, where Mike was still working. And it was Mike and Mel who to get that job. They were at my wedding. Mike convinced me to go to Peru, travel, and see the world. And it was Mike and Mel who I reached out to when I was having a tough time with working being a behavior specialist, and reached out to them and found out about this job here at the campus. And so I ended up having an office just down the hall from Mike. He would put his arm around me and said, "Stick with me, kid. I'll show you where the bodies are buried." And I was coming up to the office because it was like every day a tornado would blow through. And he'd come and sit down in my chair, or he'd invite me back to his office. We'd just talk about baseball, about life. And Belle and I were laughing about we put on a Holocaust event for Portland, and a time where we were a little concerned about security, so we had Mike be our bouncer. So anyone who walked into the downtown Portland Center had to pass through Mike. And it was having the time of his life. When Matt moved out of his office, the Mike's, he jumped at the chance to take it and moved in about 2 weeks before he passed. It's so quiet up there. There's no store, and I miss the store.
My name is Ian Yao. Mike was my AP English teacher at West Albany High School in 2001 and 2002. And my wife, Joni, and I got married last year and bought a house. So all in all, it's been like a really awesome pandemic for us. But we bought this house, and a dear friend of mine, when he saw the address, said, that's Mr. O'Malley's neighborhood. And I thought, oh, that's funny. And we ended up moving in right across the street from the O'Malleys. And my wife, Joni, when we were getting to know the neighbors, saw him when she pulled into the driveway one day. And she said, hi, I'm your new neighbor. And Mike said, are you a Republican? He doesn't like competition as much as Mike did. Really relieved that there was a Biden Harris sign in the yard, so she could truthfully and calmly answer, no, I'm not Republican. Very nice to meet you. And then, it's probably a couple of weeks later, we got home and saw, I think both Mel and Mike were coming home. And I hadn't seen him yet since we moved in, so I said, oh, hey, Mr. O'Malley, hey, Mike. And he did the same thing to me. He said, are you a Republican? I said, no, like my wife, I'm not a Republican. He said, well, it's really good to meet you. And I said, actually, we've met before. And he was like, oh, shit. And I said, you were my English teacher like 20 years ago. My name's Ian Yao. And he said, is that fucking Ian? I like you. I never made the time or had the chance to ask him if that was really true. If he really did remember me, if he really did like me. He's had countless students throughout his career, and maybe it was just one of his many charms that he had. The dear friend told me that we were moving into the O'Malley's neighborhood. He visited us before my passed, and my sisters come to see us, and they were both so excited to pop over and reconnect with Mike. It was delightful to be a reason for them to be able to do that. And I want to thank everybody for sharing, for opening their hearts, for being here. I got to cross paths with them twice in my life, and Joni and I were so looking forward to getting to know him better, not just as my teacher, to watching laser games with him. We've been really delighted to have enjoyed your hospitality and extended some to you as well, and look forward to continuing to do that. Thank you so much.
I'm Kyle. I had Mike for online class. I'm not as good as you people. I'm here to complain about Mike. That guy was freaking unfair. Every other teacher I had struggled with online classes, and he had an 8 a.m. I'm a business major. I didn't care. I was there to fill a credit. And the first thing that Mike says in my online class, I'm barely awake. What the hell are y'all doing here? This is cheap. Go somewhere else. You're wasting your time. I was like, yeah. He had this ability to just instantly connect with people. He had the ability to just know absolutely everything, read every book in the frickin' universe, and he had a charisma I've literally never seen before in my entire life. His first class was basically him saying, "Hi, I'm Mike O'Malley. Here's a list of 124 books you can choose to read." And I was entertained the entire time. Like, the man is going to have a legacy that lasts beyond far most other people's. Because just that charisma, the way he connects with people. I was online. Online sucks. I can only imagine what it would have been like for the generations of people who seen him in person. And I still thought he was phenomenal. So I guess it's just to say there's always going to be a ton of O'Malleyans around, and it really changes lives. Even when you don't interact with him, Mike just makes you feel like you can do anything, and it really sticks with you. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Zachary. I'm a fourth year electrical engineering major. And probably wondering what's an electrical engineer doing with the education class? Well, you can kind of guess, fill a back core. But it turned out to be a whole lot more than that. It was a couple years ago, one of my friends was actually here. He took the course and he just would rant and rave. He was like, yeah, sure, it's an 8 a.m. They suck, but the teacher, the professor, he's amazing. He's literally to die for, and he just wants you to be there and to show up and to just talk and talk with him and be there. And sure, you can learn what he's teaching, but he just wants to be there and connect with you. And I just kind of really connected with that. I was like, oh, I'm just having these engineering professors. I had a vector calculus class at 8 a.m. I remember how dry those were, and do I really want to show up and do this? And so I decided to, last fall when things were online, I decided to take the course at the beloved 8 a.m. And just from the get-go, just you wanted to be there. You really connected with what he said and how he wanted to be there with you. And just how, especially in Western society, we value high IQs, and we keep the EQ, the emotional intelligence, really well. He just really knew how to not only have just the high IQ from all his reading, all the knowledge he knew, but he had even more of an emotional intelligence to just really connect and love you. And no matter how guarded or reinforced the doors were to your heart, he just knew how to bust it down and kick on in and just march in and make himself at home. And from all of my education, schooling from kindergarten, middle school, high school, to now in college, I can only have on one single hand the amount of people I know by name that were able to just burst into my heart and make a home out of it and just make me think about them all the time. And Mike was one of those professors. And I always kept thinking, I would talk to my girlfriend, who was also in class with me, I was saying, I would love to just meet him and like actually see him in person and talk to him and have amazing discussions with him about education or politics or culture or history. And I remember in his course throughout the term, and especially by the end, he said, I want you to come and see me in person. And when things come back in person, I want you to come and see me. And I remember going through the end of my fall term, winter term, and spring term last year. I kept thinking in the back of my head, I can't wait to come back in person. I can't wait to meet him and talk to him and have all these amazing discussions. And I remember hearing the news on a group chat that I had with a bunch of other electrical engineers, and one of them mentioned the news, and I just couldn't believe them. I was asking so many questions. Where were you getting the news? What site were you seeing this on? I just couldn't believe it. And when I finally found out, I was completely shattered and heartbroken. And so I just really appreciate how him being an educator was more than just teaching knowledge. It was just more than teaching a subject and having you get to know somebody who taught you how to be a human, how to be a person, how to love and care for one another, and to put yourself into each other's shoes, to fully understand where they are, who they want to be, and they knew how to give you the tools to just succeed emotionally as well as intelligently. And I was just super grateful for all of that, and I'm just, makes me so hopeful seeing like all of the educators and hopeful educators and counselors that have grown under his tutelage. It just makes me so hopeful to see that they also have that part of him and can continue to spread that on to others. It just makes me so hopeful for the people that get to be under them and have that legacy continue. As was mentioned before, he's still here, he's still with us through all of the people that he's touched. And so, like I said, he said he wanted me to meet him and be back in person. And I feel like this is hopefully the best I can try to do to meet him and get through all the stories. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Renee Nagy, and I'm actually the person who recommended that class to the person who just spoke here. You'll have to excuse my breath, I was coming back to my meditation thoughts. But yes, everything that Zach said is true. I did go through his class my sophomore year, also at 8 a.m., the purpose, structure, and function of education and democracy. So you go to classes, you go to learn, but the real reason, why are you learning? Why do you go to university? Nobody tells you that. And that was something that I wanted to learn. And it was something that we sort of touched on before, even in high school. I'm very lucky to have actually had some very brilliant educators in my past, in my high school, in a really awesome IB program. Part of the IB program is an epistemology course, where you're really thinking about thinking. How do we know what we know? What is our purpose? Why are we here? And that's what I was interested in that class, and why it stuck out to me as just another class. You choose and so many different classes to fulfill this backdoor requirement. But the purpose, structure, and function of education and democracy. Why are we here? What are we trying to do in the first place? And I expected it to be a class with very fun teacher. I looked them up on Rate My Professor, and wonderful, glowing reviews. I'm like, wow, it's going to be a great professor. That's a great time. I could not have been more wrong. It was so much more than that. Not just learning content, but growing as a person. He really understood, as so many of you have said, that it's not about what you learn, it's about you and what's inside, what's deeper, what your passions are, what your purpose is, and lighting that fire. That's what education is. It isn't just talking about educational philosophy. Educational philosophy is something that you want to know about, that you want to learn about, or to know more about yourself. And he knew how to get to that. How you could learn about yourself through someone else. And yet he had an expertise in doing so. To get you to understand yourself better is something that, despite all of the wonderful educators I've had in my past, no one could do it. Not quite like Mike O'Malley. He's a wonderful person. I would follow him back from class almost every single day. The poor guy had work to do, and I would follow him all the way back to Furman Hall from the link, and we just talked. It was really the highlight of that entire term, and I am just extremely saddened that I also, wasn't able to share that coffee with him that I thought I would. But I'm so, so happy to have met him. He's made a wonderful impact on so many people's lives. I'm so glad to have met him and to have known him. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming here once again, and thank all of you who shared And even those of you who didn't get an opportunity yet, we all know that Mike is in your heart, in our minds, and he'll be part of who we are from now on. Thank you, Nell. Thank you, Emmett. Bridget here? Yes, and Bridget. And we do have refreshments outside. You'd like to partake in that. And with that, we'll conclude the ceremony. Thank you very much.